Fairly poor results from Reliance Industries, not surprising actually given the pandemic. Reliance's revenues fell 38% and EBITDA fell 12%, but net profits actually rose a sharp 32%, primarily because of the BP capital infusion. Being able to retire a lot more debt, of course, thanks to the massive capital infusion, will help the company in the future. It will help it in the sense of lowering the interest burden. And while Jio Platforms continues to be the flavor of the season, Bharti Airtel once again continues to report better numbers than Jio itself. Bharti Airtel subscribers on average use about 17 GB of data per month versus about 12 GB for Reliance, and Bharti subscribers had about 994 minutes of voice calls per month versus 756 for Jio. As a result of this, Bharti Airtel's ARPU continued to be higher for several quarters. It's 157 right now versus Jio's 140. Of course, in its investor call, Bharti CEO Gopal Vittal talked about the fact that the ARPU needed to go up to 200 rupees immediately and 300 in the long run. This of course brings us to a point that we've been making for a very long time. Ever since the regulators, both the TRAI as well as the Competition Commission, ever since the regulators allowed RJIO's predatory pricing to continue to unchecked and that wrought havoc on the industry, we've been saying for a long time that even though telecom tariffs have come down to very unviable levels right now, given the fact that there are essentially two operators left, Bharti Airtel and Jio, it is going to be very difficult now to figure out when these operators decide to collude and jack up prices. That's really the problem when you destroy competition, because competition has a way of keeping a check on the market, and competition was destroyed both by the regulators as well as by the government of India, and they both did it almost willfully. Top tech giants Apple, Google, Facebook and Amazon continue to get a drubbing for the second day in a row in front of the antitrust panel of the House of Representatives. Essentially, these companies are under fire because the argument is being made that they are indulging in unfair market practices, or they are using their huge cash troves to actually buy out the competition. So for example, Facebook was asked whether it bought Instagram essentially to make sure that there was no competition. Now, whether this results in anything serious happening to these tech giants, I mean in the sense of they're being dismembered or broken up into smaller companies, it's difficult to say, but certainly these companies are going in for a tough time right now, and we have to see how this story plays out. The fact that the parliamentarians in the United States are asking these companies tough questions, of course, is quite in contrast to the manner in which big companies are dealt with in India. So it's very rarely that Indian parliamentarians actually ask tough questions, and more often than not, they are just left to regulators who tend to be opaque and sometimes even quite biased in their functioning. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has promised to fix the vexed issue of export incentives. Actually, incentives is not the correct word to use, since more often than not, this is really about trying to compensate these companies for the duties and other costs that are not rebated. The story in this case is about what is called a merchandise export from India scheme that the government has decided to replace with a more WTO friendly scheme. But here's the problem. The MEIS benefits used to be about 40,000 crore rupees in FY19. They rose to 45,000 crores in FY20. And right now, for the first 9 months of this year, the government has decided to cap this at 9,000 crores. Whether or not the government is able to come up with another scheme or not, the real issue is that the exporters have built in these incentives while quoting prices to buyers abroad. So if they are suddenly faced with the possibility of not getting their money, this is a big blow to them. Our lead editorial today lauds the government for the moves it has made on the education policy, but it feels that the decision to teach in local languages till class 5 and possibly till class 8 and even beyond is actually a bad idea. Now, a lot of people argue that those who learn in local languages tend to learn better. So, whether it's China, Korea or Russia or Japan, a lot of these examples are given of a lot of countries that have done very well while learning in their local language. Now, that may be so, but it's not really that simple. To begin with, India doesn't have one local language. So essentially, when we are talking about teaching people in their local language, we are talking about making books and texts and reference material in 20, 30 languages. Secondly, when the world is really transacting in English, do we want to have our children not being very proficient in that language? Keep in mind that even while the government and while a lot of people are arguing that learning in the local language is better, most poor people want to move their children to English medium schools. Given this, the obvious question is, has the policy got it wrong? Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.